Om Tavakatam Ritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibiriditam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadatam Bhuvi Grinanti Ye Bhurita Jana. To our lives that are scorched, your words are like nectar. They are praised by the sages. They destroy sin, and they are auspicious to hear. Those who spread thy divine glories, O Lord, are the real benefactors of this world. The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, here on page 286. The Master. M says, once you said that if one constantly talks of one's sin, really becomes a sinner. One cannot extricate oneself from sin. But if a person has firm faith that one is a son, a child of God, then one makes rapid strides in spiritual life. So this is M. As we know, he is the recorder of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And in the Gospel, he presents himself as M. Mahendra Nath Gupta, popularly known as Master Mahashay, because he was a teacher in a school. So the Master replies, yes, faith. What tremendous faith Krishna Kishore had. He used to say, I have spoken the name of God once. That is enough. How can I remain a sinner? I have become pure and stainless. End of quote. This is the faith one needs when one takes up religious practices or spiritual disciplines, or faith is a foundation of everything. As the Bhagavad Gita says, as is a person's faith, so is that person. This faith has the three qualities of sattva, rajas, and tamas. So there's a whole chapter in the Bhagavad Gita dedicated to faith, Shraddha, Traya, Vibhaga, the three types of faith. So even the Katha Upanishad speaks about when the boy Nachiketa, he was confused. Why did my father says, go to the god of death's realm? And then the Upanishad says, faith entered into him. Shraddha avivesha. And this is the basis of everything. Faith, faith, faith. And Sri Ramakrishna is over and over speaking about it. All the teachers have spoken about as Faith as central to any type of life. If you don't have faith in God, Swamiji goes even further and says, you may have faith in all the 330 crore gods, 330 millions of gods that you have, and all the gods that the foreigners have brought in. But if you don't have faith in yourself, so Swami Vivekananda had said that faith in oneself. So that the word Shraddha, he says, cannot be adequately translated. It is translated as faith, but it covers a vast ground. So this is central. How do you know God exists? I have that faith. There it is. So here he is giving the example of Krishna Kishore. Krishna Kishore was one of the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna whom we used to visit Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineshwar. He also used to live nearby. So he says, I have spoken the name of God once, that is enough. How can I remain a sinner? I have become pure and stainless. This is the faith. If you have that, then your spiritual practices becomes very powerful. Then there is hardly any time now remaining till you have the vision of God. So even Sri Ramakrishna says they have spent more than half their life undecided whether God exists or no. When are you going to sit down and do meditation or your spiritual practices? This is what. So they used to say, oh, there are people, they are so kind of caught up with all hundreds of things. And yeah, they will play cards and this and that, and as if, and if they are bored, they'll erect a fence. In India, we had that, There was nothing to do. I've got time on my hands. For these people, it's very difficult to have that kind of spiritual practices. It will be lukewarm, to put it simply. So this is saying, so the master continues, one day Haladari said, quote, even Ajamila had to perform austerities to gratify God. Can one receive the grace of God without austerities? What will one gain by speaking the name of Narayana only once? At these remarks, Krishna Kishore's anger knew no bounds. The next time he came to the garden to pick flowers, he wouldn't even look at Haladari. Haladari was, as you know, every play has to have a kind of a trickster. Haladari was his cousin. Haladari also was a great scholar, and he was also an expert on the Bhagavatam, to discourse on the Bhagavatam. Haladari was his first cousin. So he used to work as a priest also there in Dakshineshwar. So to counter Krishna Kishore's faith in, I have spoken the name of God once, how can I be a sinner? So Sri Ramakrishna brings in a counter argument to this. Well, he's saying, Haladari, saying, what will you gain by speaking of the name of Narayana only once? Ajamila was a great devotee but he had strayed from the path of devotion and he had gone into worldly ways. And at the time of death, what happened was, he was panicked and he calls out to his son, who also happens to be named Narayana. So Narayana, and that's the name of God also. So Narayana, the God, appears and saves him. So it is true that just once he said, and Ajamila was saved, but Haladari puts a caveat. But Ajamila had also to practice many austerities. He did practice many austerities. So this is another kind of counter-argument. So Krishna Kishore did not like this at all. It was going against the grain of his nature. His faith is, I have become sinless by taking God's name. Once is more than enough. Yes. So he became so upset with Haladari's comment. So he never used to even look at him. He used to get furious whenever he used to say Haladari. So that was it. So he, as I said, he used to live in the neighborhood. So he used to come to the temple garden to pluck flowers there. So he didn't even look at Haladari. Sri Ramakrishna continues. Haladari's father was a great devotee. Yeah. Okay, now he's speaking about his uncle. Okay? Sri Ramakrishna's uncle. Because Haladari's father's name was Ram Tarak Chattopadhyay. He was the youngest brother of Sri Ramakrishna's father, who was Kshudiram Chattopadhyay. Who is talking? Haladari's father was a great devotee. Haladari. Hala is the plow. Dhari is one who, the bearer of the plowshare, as they say. In the old days, we had these bullocks who used to drag behind them the plow. And Haladari is another name for the companion, the brother of Sri Krishna, called Balarama. But let's come to. So Haladari's father was a great devotee. At bathing time, he would stand waist deep in the water and meditate on God, uttering the sacred mantra. Then the tears would flow from his eyes. Bathing time, did not they have the bathroom? I said, no. In India, bath was considered a sacred kind of activity. And it had to be taken out in rivers or in ponds. And while bathing, you don't think about anything else but God. That was the idea. So you're purified in the body, you purify yourself in the mind also by taking the name of God. Standing in waist deep or chest deep or neck deep water and repeating the name of God was one of the spiritual practices performed by many people with that for many, many years. Even now, you do find people, when they go down to the river to perform some ritual, they stand in waist-deep water and they pray. Okay. So this is still, but of course, like I said, it's reduced, much reduced. So Haladari's father used to stand in waist-deep water and used to pray. And he says, when he used to utter the sacred mantra, now the sacred mantra, it is generally the Gayatri mantra that is used as repetition. Or if one has been initiated in a particular mantra, then one repeats that mantra. So he's saying, then the tears would flow from his eyes. This is what, Sri Ramakrishna's father also, when he used to go and stand in waist-deep water and recite God's name, he also used to have his tears flowing down from his eyes. His face used to be flushed as well as his chest. People used to get frightened, the other bathers used to get frightened or hesitant rather, to step into that water when Sri Ramakrishna's father used to bathe there. He was so venerable. In fact, they used to, before bathing, if they have come early to the pond, that's Haldar Pukur, near Sri Ramakrishna's birthplace, they used to ask, has he finished his bath? If he hasn't, they would wait till he finished his bath and you should leave and then. Because they used to see that tremendous devotion when he used to take the name of God. And this is a lesson for all of us. When we take the name of God, we must be able to just let go of all our inhibitions and take the name of God. What will people say? Who bothers now? If you are bothered about what will people say, if I create a scene, it does not matter. When you pray, plunge in. That is the way one prays. And that speaks about faith. If you have faith in your prayers, in your mantra, in the deity, in yourself, you will plunge in. So Haladari's father would like this. Tears would flow from his eyes. Tears. Is he weeping? People weep for many things. Sri Ramakrishna, when he was asked, have you seen God, by Swami Vivekananda? He said, yes, I see him in even a more intenser sense than I see this world. So Swami Vivekananda was pleased. He's saying, here was a person who says, I have seen. The world appears like a shadow and God is seen as a reality. This is what it means. And Sri Ramakrishna then continues, says, but who wants God? People weep a jugful for n number of things, for money and this and that, and who weeps for God? This is the way. In this age, if you weep for God, you will attain God. Forget all about this yoga and meditation and dhyana and all these austerities and these vigils and these prayers and hundreds of things that we try to occupy ourselves. It is just try to occupy ourselves. It may increase your sense of pride. Oh, you see, every day I'm doing meditation and japa and this and that, and yeah, there's no one so great as me. I'm better than that guy, see? This is only the outer fringes. Spiritual practices without the pride, of course. The outer fringes. The very core of spiritual practice is this: praying with tears for the vision of God. That bespeaks faith. And if one can, and that's why Sri Ramakrishna constantly exhorts us with the illustration of, a child when it is finding itself without its mother, weeps because it finds itself lost. So weep like a child. Give up all pretensions. Give up all the, you can say, things that you have accumulated. And really weep for God. So God listens to such prayers. There is also, you weep. And this weeping, there are people who weep for other things. But when you weep for God, the tears flow down from the corners of the eyes. People, there are tears of shame and tears of pain and tears of regret and tears of so many things are there. There are tears of joy also. So this stage where prayers with tears become essential is a state called viraha. You have that faith, you have somehow become kind of disconnected with the divine, and you want to get connected back to the divine. And that kind of anguish that grips the soul, kind of wrenches. Sri Ramakrishna says, when he was waiting for his disciples to arrive, he used to go to the rooftop, saying, somehow I could contain myself throughout the day. But in the evening, when the sound of the conch and the bells signaling the vespers, he used to go to the roof of the mansion where he was living in one of the rooms. And he used to weep. And he's saying, it was as if it's like my heart was wrung out, like a towel being wrung out from its water. We also see Sri Ramakrishna weeping for the vision of Kali. All his visions preceded his weeping. Every one of them. He wasn't laughing and, this is, no. This, and Sri Ramakrishna also says, tears wash away the sins of many births. Some of his disciples, when he used to see, especially Swami Shivananda, once when he was meditating and then he opened his eyes, he saw Sri Ramakrishna and he burst into tears. So Sri Ramakrishna says, weeping for God is good. So this is what it is. So he's saying here that when you have such faith, yes. Somebody is saying, I have done 100,000 times repetition of God. What? You have done enough to liberate 100,000 people. But are you also liberated? You have done things mechanically. And they'll give a whole list. We have done 50,000, we have done 100,000, we have done 10,000, we have done 1,000. What's that? Mother also says, do one, do it properly. Do little, but do it properly. And that is to put your whole heart and soul into that repetition. Don't let anything distract you. So this is what is the core of spiritual practices. Well, what about mechanical repetition? Yeah, that is good. It will kind of create a momentum. But as the momentum keeps on growing and growing, this will take place. You will weep for God when you take God's name. And this is one of the signs. The other signs is not mentioned here, but in the other bhakti scriptures, your hair stands on ends. There's a kind of horripilation. Your voice chokes. And you become flushed. Your body also undergoes that shivers, you're seized with the shivers. Not out of fear or anything, but that devotion is kind of shaking your very bones. So these are the 8 sattvika signs of devotion. Your breathing stops, all these things. So it doesn't matter. So when you say weep for God, you weep for 2 minutes and then you're back to normal? No. All the other signs also take place in the body when one is praying. So that was Haladari's father standing in waist-deep water and repeating the sacred mantra. Sri Ramakrishna continues. One day, a holy man came, that is a sadhu, to the bathing place, which is now, it's called a ghat, which is now an English word. When this was translated in a bathing place, ghat is ghat. These are the steps that are built leading from the banks of the river to the river. Okay. So we will say, what's bathing place? Yeah, it's a ghat. Like you've seen pictures of Benares. You've seen, in fact, all sacred rivers, you will find all those huge steps leading down. So you'll find on those steps people doing puja, sitting and doing meditation, or japa, and this and that, and bathing, of course. So you always had to do bathe, and then you do the puja. So when you go to bathe, you're carrying along with you flowers. And all along those ghats, bathing ghats, those bathing places, you always had temples. Every bathing ghat, bathing place, we will have a temple. So after you finish your bath, you come and bring a little of that water, either in a copper vessel or in your cupped palms. Come and offer it first to the deity there in the temple. Small, big, hundreds of temples. And then you bring the flowers that you had and you worship, and then you pray, and then you meditate. This was. So sadhus, in old days, sadhus, holy men, sadhus also now is an English word, so it's in the vocabulary. They used to live on these banks, bathing ghats. They were the favorite place. Swami Adbhutananda, Latu Maharaj, lived for many years on the bathing ghat there at Calcutta. So one day a holy man came to the bathing place on the Ganges at Arya Daha. We talked about seeing him. Haladari said, "What shall we gain by seeing the body of a man, a mere cage made of 5 elements?" Haladari was, that is a scholar, and always had to have some counter argument against it. So they had said that some holy man had come. And in India, this is what it is. You have a holy man in somewhere in the vicinity, they will all go there. Oh, like people, they go to the bars and discos and all these various places. Like, let's have an evening out. In India, let's have an evening out. What? Let's go. There's a holy man there, and he's giving a discourse. Let's go there. So he says, Arya Daha is cremation, where the Aryas are the Aryans, as in English you think Aryas. It's a place where it's a cremation ground. It was called Arya Daha. Some of Sri Ramakrishna's disciples were also living in that locality. So they said, they talked about going to see him. Haladari says, as you know, he's the trickster. Quote, what shall we gain by seeing the body of a man, a mere cage made of 5 elements? End of quote. And naturally, the body is made of 5 elements, no? Earth, water, fire, air, and ether. No, all these. It's a combination. Yeah, not 5. Yeah, all the elements. From 5 have emerged all elements. Not 5. From one element has emerged everything. From space has emerged everything. Tasmad vaye tasmad atmana akasha sambhuta akashad vayu vayu ragni. So in the Upanishads, it's a clear thing. Space, from space has emerged first that mighty air, akashad vayu. From air has emerged, because of that cosmic air, because of its friction, heats up. It becomes fire, air, hot. And then it condenses, becomes water. Fire condenses. And then it condenses even some more and becomes the earth. So it's speaking about the evolution of physical matter. And everything what we are now, the materials found in us, are found all over the universe. Everywhere. In fact, the materials here in our bodies were cooked in these mighty supernovas. Oh yes. All these heavy elements, iron, etc., cannot be just made out of simple hydrogen. Hydrogen was the first, you can say, element. Space. And so you call it a Big Bang or you call it anything, but there was an exponential increase in space. And the whole physical universe emerged. So the body, all bodies are made of that same material. So you see, Haladari is saying, what's the use of going and seeing the body of somebody? They're made of the 5 elements. So here Krishna Kishore, he's bringing, Sri Ramakrishna bringing him. Krishna Kishore heard about it and said, what? Saying, did Haladari ask what would be gained by visiting holy man? By repeating the name of Krishna or Rama, a man transforms his physical body into a spiritual body. To such a man, everything is the embodiment of spirit. To him, Krishna is the embodiment of spirit, and his sacred abode is the embodiment of spirit. Chinmay, consciousness, translated as spirit. Krishna's abode is spirit, Chinmay. The devotee is spirit. So, how does this physical body is transformed into a spiritual body? it is called, as Sri Ramakrishna says, it's a Bhagavati Tanu. Bhagavati Tanu is a body. The body of spirit. It is only in this body of Bhagavati Tanu. Bhagavati is a divine mother. Only in that body will you see visions, etc. People say, I have seen visions, I have seen so and so. You've probably seen a couple of ghosts, or you've seen your imaginations projected outside. You cannot have any visions and all without this Bhagavati Tanu. And how is this created? It is created by spiritual disciplines. Without that, and it takes years and years and years of spiritual disciplines, where the body has become transformed. These physical elements become transformed. See, this physical body is at one level, it appears like a physical body. On a deeper level, it appears as a mass of energy. So when you wonder, what is that energy? Is it matter, or is the matter energy? It's on a deeper level of understanding. It is nothing but an energy. So why do we see this energy as gross? Well, that is the nature of Maya. It doesn't matter. But know that there are deeper dimensions within matter itself. So in spirituality, there are deeper dimensions when the physical body is there, and within it there is the vital force body, the pranamaya sharir. The vital forces, all the forces that are working in the body, they have also a kind of an existence. And then we have the body made of the mind. All these, and then the intelligence, all these form what is called the subtle body of a person. So we have a gross body and we have a subtle body also. And beyond that subtle body is something called the causal body. This is the cause. The causal body gives rise to the subtle body, and the subtle body gives rise to the gross body. So it is this subtle body along with the other deeper dimensions, along with the causal body, that becomes transformed. That is called the spiritual bodies, period. So, can it be seen? Yeah, like in one time, just to bring Sri Ramakrishna's examples in his life, Sri Ramakrishna was walking with Hriday, one of his nephews, at Dakshineshwar in the Panchavati. They were returning to their room from that grove of 5 trees, Panchavati, and they're returning. And suddenly Hriday, he starts, Uncle, we are not ordinary mortals. We are divine beings. Let us go to Calcutta and let us liberate all those people. What did he see? He saw his own body as well as Sri Ramakrishna, his uncle's body, as luminous, which is not touching the ground, is floating. That's why when you see the visions, you'll see the feet of God do not touch the ground. Okay, that's a different. So what happens is, so this body can be perceived. You perceive, you know when it has become ready. So what's the goal of human life? To see God. How? Even in the Bhagavad Gita, it's saying, you cannot see God with these eyes. Sri Krishna tells Arjuna, I'll give you divine eyes. Now see my cosmic form. And then he could see his cosmic form. People have some queer ideas about visions and, all these things and what they see and what they hear. They may be seeing that, but these are not spiritual entities. They are not spiritual feelings. Spiritual life is the creation of this subtle body into a divine body and then seeing God. It is only through that you can interact with God. You can see, touch, taste, everything. So that is also called the body made of bhava, your condensed feelings, spiritual feelings, and a kernel which is faith. So in the Vaishnava scriptures, Sri Krishna is Chinmay, consciousness. His abode is consciousness. And everything is consciousness. So Sri Ramakrishna continues saying, that is, he is quoting Krishna Kishore. A person who utters the name of Krishna or Rama even once reaps the results of 100 sandhyas. Sandhya Vandana was a ritual performed at the junction of morning and night, evening and night, Sandhya. Morning also, when it's night and morning, the 4 parts of the day, when one period is transitioning into the other. It's called Sandhya, Sandhi, to join. When you practice your spiritual discipline during those, when night transitions into morning, dawn, that's a time when nature is calm and it's very propitious for spiritual practices. In the evening, when evening is transitioning into night, that also nature becomes conducive to your spiritual practices. So during that time, everybody leaves everything, whatever they are doing. In the old days, we used to see our grandmothers and all. It's evening, they used to light the lamp, and we are all, and then they should wave the lamp in front of God and pictures of God, and then everybody had to go and do that. Their ritual, Sandhya. It's a repetition of the Gayatri along with a few other kind of thing, other rituals. This was, you can say, mandatory for everybody, especially of those of the higher caste. They had to do it. So there you had Sandhya Vandana. So it said. So he says, one is saying a man who utters the name of Krishna or Rama even once reaps the results of 100 sandhyas. Such is the power of the name of God when repeated with faith. So Sandhya is a very powerful ritual. Yes. Let's not go into that. Those who are interested, there's a small kind of booklet, Om, Gayatri and Sandhya by Swami Mukhyananda. That Swami has passed away. I used to interact with him. Very nice, loving Swami, he was. Anyway, so here it is. So those who are interested can check that. Sandhya, the ritual, what mantras have to be recited, etc. So here, the idea here is one repetition of God's name is equal to 100 sandhyas. So this was Krishna Kishore's faith. So to continue, one of his sons, Krishna Kishore's sons, chanted the name of Rama on his deathbed. Krishna Kishore said, quote, "He has nothing to worry about. He has chanted the name of Rama." That is what it is. This is that faith. But then Sri Ramakrishna, but now and then he wept. After all, it was the death of his own son. It doesn't matter. But he had that faith. Now his son and the dying moments chanted the name of God. You know, people say, oh, when it's time for death to arrive, I'll take God's name. It doesn't happen like that. If you have been taking God's name all through, then you will take it. And a lot of the Gita teachings speak about taking God's name when you give up the body. So that has become part of the doctrine in Hinduism, in Vedanta. Your last thought will dictate what you will be in your next birth. Simple as. So here he's saying he took the name of Rama, but he doesn't have to worry about it. Yeah, this. So today's, you can say, readings was just a highlight on faith. And he brought in Krishna Kishore and how he was, you can say, imbued with faith, and how the counter arguments of Haladari were used. But the counter arguments were also used not in a negative way, but a positive way, to highlight taking the name of God with faith. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.